Hi friends, my name is Sangram. Let's discuss about Azure SQL today. So Azure SQL is a PaaS service within Azure ecosystem. It helps you to save data in structural format in a table, and it supports all the fundamentals of RDBMS. So let's straight away go to the portal and create Azure SQL resource. So let us go and create a SQL Server resource first before creating the database. Type in SQL Server in the search box and then click on add. And our subscription and resource group is already selected. If you want to change the resource group, you can change it over here. I would select demo RG as the resource group. Let me select server name and then ECUs as a data center is fine for us. And then let me put the SQL authentication username followed by password. Then followed by networking. And then it says allow Azure services and resources to access this server. So I would keep it to yes if my other applications wants to talk to this particular SQL Server database. For example, if Data Factory wants to talk to this server, I should mark this as yes. And then under additional settings, you can put it as start free trial. So for the 30 days of time, you would get free advanced threat protection options, and all the assessment like vulnerability assessment would be done at free of cost. But post that, there'll be some amount of cost incurred on this. So as part of our learning program, let's keep it not now. And then go to tags. And we understood the significance of tags in previous videos, right? So if we are specifying the same tag for a set of resources, and later when we extract the billing for the billing cycle, we'll understand that for the same tag for those set of resources, we'll have this much amount of billing amount. So for example, I would keep team name as payments. Okay, and let's assume I've done this for 5 different resources as well. Then for a total of 6 resources during my billing period, I would be able to extract that amount for just those 6 resources. And after it is created, you can still go ahead and add additional tags. So let's go to review plus create. So you don't need to pay anything here because we are just creating server, and we'll go ahead and create the database in a while. So for now, the validation is successful, and let me go ahead and create the SQL Server resource here. And I can see the notification icon. The deployment is submitted. And the deployment is underway. So let's speed it up. And the deployment is successful. Now let's create a SQL database. So type in SQL database in the search box. Then click on add. Then my subscription and resource group is already selected. If you want to change the options, you can do so here. And then let me provide the database name, demo bits db, and it is under the server demo bits. So if you have multiple servers, then it will be listed here. You can select the appropriate server. I would come to SQL Elastic Pool in a while. Let's understand what is compute plus storage. Click on configure database. And there are multiple options. If you can see, we can see basic, standard, premium, and then some Vcore options as well. So if I just restrict my discussion to basic, standard, premium for now, it is a DTU based model. DTU is nothing but database transaction units. So more is the DTU, more is the CPU storage and IO power that I get. So let's say if I'm selecting 20 DTU over here, then the pricing would be set accordingly, and I would be having more CPU, IO plus storage. So DTU is a combination of IO, storage, and CPU. Okay, and then coming to Vcore option, Vcore is little different than the basic, standard, premium with respect to the DTU model. Vcore is mostly like the compute and storage are separated out. So if I scroll down, and I can see I can set up more number of Vcores and the pricing increases. Whereas if I again modify the size of the database, then also the price increases. So here the Vcore model versus the D2 is little different. In Vcore, the compute and storage is separated out. And then there is an option called a serverless Vcore compute. So if I click on this, then you see there are options like minimum Vcore and maximum Vcore. So let me select an option like I have 16 Vcore maximum and 2 Vcore at the minimum Vcore level. And then there is an option called as auto pause delay. So it means that based on the workload, a optimal number of Vcore is automatically selected for you, and you pay only for that Vcore amount. And then you can also introduce one more option where you can enable auto pause. So let's say that if my database is in unused state for the next 1 hour, this database would be paused automatically, and you don't pay for the database. So that's basically your pause and play option, which you get in a serverless vCore option. Okay, and you get the similar options in general purpose, hyperscale, and business critical options. Let me go back. Okay, let me select DTU number. So let me select DTU of 10 DTU. Click on apply, and then my DTU is selected. Now let me talk about this SQL Elastic Pool. So just understand that we are going to create a database with 10 DTU as the configuration. If we have two more databases, then let's say I'm again setting up the configuration as 10 DTU. 10 DTU is a total of 30 DTU is what I have now. But if I understand my processing time during the day, let's say in the morning time I use first database, and in the afternoon time I use second database, and in the evening time I use the third database. And if every database is using 10 DTU, wouldn't be nice if I have just 10 DTU, and then it's a shared DTU instead of having a dedicated 10 DTU for each and every database. So that's where the elastic pool concept comes into picture. So if I create an elastic pool, then I will be assigning 10 DTU to the elastic pool. And when my database operations are running for the first one, and in the morning time, so 10 DTU from the elastic pool will be dedicated to the first database. And let's say in the afternoon time, the second database is in operation. So the elastic pool would send the 10 DTU to the second database, and so on. So now 10 DTU is shared, but it is again specific to use case, and with respect to your operations during the day. It's if it is very much predictable in nature when your database is being used during the day, then I think you can evaluate your options for elastic pool. Okay, so I would choose the option as no for the timing, and I've selected the compute plus storage as 10 DTU. Let's go to networking. So I would not be providing the private endpoint option. I would make this as a public, and would later control it with respect to access control, and with respect to SQL authentication. Then additional settings. So I want to create a database with just empty database. I don't want to create it with respect to sample, so that is fine for me. You can change your collection here. By default, this particular collection is selected. And we already saw this option, advanced threat protection, in the server level. So I won't be making changes to this again. Let it be not now. Going to tags, we already understood the significance of tags in when creating the SQL Server resource. So let's go ahead. And I can see my estimated cost per month is 990 INR. I'm okay with that pricing. Then let's go ahead and create the SQL database resource now. So the deployment has started. And it is in progress. So let's speed it up. So once the database is created, you can see some extended properties as well. So there is a copy option where you can copy the same database to a different name. And then there is an option called as restore, where you can restore the version of the same database back in time. And then there is an export option to export your database, and set server firewall. So if you want to access this particular database using any of your client tool like SQL Server Management Studio, Azure Data Studio, then you need to just add your client API here, and then you are good to go to connect to this database. And then if you want to delete the database, there is an option to do so. And then if you want to install Azure Data Studio or Visual Studio, click on this option, and you will be able to download the Azure Data Studio or any such client tool. And then there is an option called as activity log, where if I change any such properties of this database, like let's say configuration, modification, etc., I would be able to log this information over here. This happens automatically. And while creating the database, we saw there was an option called as tags. If I want to put some additional tags, I can do so here. And if ever you encounter any regular problems within this database and you feel there is a problem, then you can always come to diagnose and solve problem and watch out for any similar problem, and you can find the solution respectively. And there is a quick start option where you would be able to easily connect to this particular database using Azure SDK, Data Studio, Management Studio, etc. And then quick editor. So it's a small editor. So if I provide my SQL authentication username and password, then I would be able to connect to my database instance. Click on OK, and you will see an error message. It says my client IP is not added to this SQL database. So let me copy my client IP, go to overview again, and there's an option called set server firewall. And then add my IP. I can simply click on add client IP, and the same IP address is coming over here. Click on save. And you can see the notification that this firewall IP is added to my database. Scroll down again and go back to query editor, where I'll again type in my password. And now I should be able to successfully logging in the server. So you can see I was able to connect to this editor in the same portal. You can do the same thing using your SQL Server Management Studio or Azure Data Studio or any such tools that you have. And then there is an option called as configure, where we had selected DTU of 10, right? So you can again modify the DTU, or you can go ahead with Vcore option over here again. So if you think that there is an increase in customer demand for this particular database in terms of load, then you can always come here and increase the DTU or move to Vcore model. And when the scale is not that much, you can again scale it down to a previous DTU version. And then coming to Geo replication, if I want to host my database in secondary servers as well, I can choose any of the secondary data centers and my database would be replicated from Geo perspective. You can get some ready-made connections to connect to this database using some frameworks like ADO.NET, GDBC, ODBC. And sync to other databases is, let's say you have identified some table which needs to be copied to several other databases. So you can use sync to other databases in order to achieve that solution. So this is mostly used in publisher subscriber mechanism. And then you can watch out in properties the some resource ID, and then you can get subscription ID over here. So this resource ID would be the resource ID of this particular database. So many programming languages would require this resource ID in order to talk to SQL database. In such a case, you can just come to the property section, extract the resource ID here. And logs, if I want to make a read-only log on this particular database, you wouldn't be able to modify any of the settings nor insert data into this particular database. And if I select delete log, then I won't be able to delete the database. Okay, come down to new support request, where if you feel there is a particular product bug or you're blocked with anything, you can always raise a support ticket and you will be reaching out to the support team of Azure SQL product team. Okay, this was the overview about this Azure SQL extended properties. Let's go ahead and create some tables. So let's go to the query editor and I would type in my username and password. And then I'm connected to my DB instance. I have copied a piece of code. Let me paste it here. And then you would see I have a create table statement followed by an insert statement. Let me run this query. And then I would do a select of the same table. And you can see the record got inserted. You can see that in the select statement. Okay, so what I wanted to say is you can make use of query editor to write your queries and build your application. Okay, but you can make use of SQL Server Management Studio or Azure Data Studio, which gives you even more functionality to develop your application. Thanks for watching the video. Please like and subscribe, and happy learning.